Morning, Moonchild Tree. I'm just taking a look through to see, to look at some recent video uploads that might be of interest to folks. I'm seeing that Amy Breeze Harper just uploaded video, and Amy Breeze Harper, Dr. Harper doesn't upload that often, so that's something that I'm going to be looking forward to and might be chatting about in the next week. I'm seeing, I know you guys know, folks know that I'm a pretty big fan of, I don't know, I'm a big fan of Megan Tonjes, and Megan Tonjes videos have been pretty frequent recently, and she's been doing these ASMRs where she's been basically reading off the insults on her channel as ASMR, and they're pretty it's interesting. It's interesting. And I'm just wondering, like, what is the impact of even like delving into that, like getting into that. Anyway, um, Kendall BA1 Lay, good morning, and good morning Veganista 007. Thank you for joining the broadcast this morning. I was also thinking about going in and reading some of the comments on some recent videos, if that would be interesting for folks. Also getting into, obviously, this week, the videos this week were on the topic of patriotism patriotism in general, but specifically around the U.S. national anthem and the U.S. flag, and what's some of the thinking around that, and what are some of the rules, protocols, and constitutional considerations around the disrespect of these icons, for better or worse. And then the follow-up video on Thursday was just my thinking about that. I just thinking about, what is owed by citizens of a country, of a nation. What does it mean to be a citizen? What do you owe, and who do you owe it to? And that's a discussion that I think can be had regardless of whether someone is a citizen of the United States. And then, and of course, I'm always open to what everyone here has to talk about. It was very interesting we did last week's live stream, and immediately after there was this whole kind of media storm around Donald Trump making the comments that he made around the hundreds of professional sports figures who decided that they were going to kind of back Colin Kaepernick by also taking the knee. We also have Jack, obviously, in the background, wanting to be part of the conversation, and not many of us being able to understand. So how's everyone? How's everyone this morning? Just checking in. Also, I noticed that there's a new film, a new documentary called Embargo, that is looking at U.S.-Cuba relations that might be interesting to investigate, and that might be something to do a review of in the coming months. And there's also, I believe it's an interview on Democracy Now! With Muhammad Yunus, talking about the possibility of zero poverty, zero unemployment, and zero emissions. And this is a global perspective. What does it mean to have a world, like is it possible for us to have a world with zero poverty, zero unemployment, and zero emissions? Is it even a possibility? So I'm looking forward to looking at that interview and maybe making some comments next week. You guys also may, those who don't know, that I have a YouTube channel. It's Reg Flowers, it's my name, and please do check it out. in recent months, I've been posting consistently two videos each week, one on Tuesday and one on Thursday. The reason for that is I teach on Mondays and Wednesdays, so it's pretty impossible to get a video up on those days. And then I figure, once I've done a video on Thursday, trying to do a video again on Friday and Saturday is just, it's the weekend. It's the weekend. And I know that I'm going to be doing this live stream on Sunday. So that's basically creating content. I'm uploading there's three new bits of content from me each week. And I figure that's pretty consistent and hopefully enough to keep everyone engaged. I also want to be really realistic in that I know it's hard for people to I know it's hard for people to keep up with the viewing. I know it's hard for me to keep up with the viewing. So you guys can let me know if you think that it's even reasonable to expect more content. Something else that was quite a surprise is I was asked to do some hosting of I hosted some karaoke. I hosted some karaoke this week, y'all, and what that required of me was purchasing some new makeup. Now, when I talk about hosting karaoke, I actually have a persona, a karaoke hostess persona named Dropsy Desmond, and I actually on my dressing room table at the space, even though I haven't worked there for, the last time I hosted, I think was back in May, maybe it was in May, maybe April, was back in April. But I found it's a black and white photo, and it's from I think maybe it's from 2 years ago. But it's me in my persona as Dropsy Desmond. So get yourselves ready, take a breath, take a breath. So I'm going to show you the photo. All right, so that's Dropsy, y'all. So anyway, I just went and did some Dropsy. On Friday, a friend of mine called. There was kind of going to be a gathering of some people coming in from out of town, and they wanted me to host some karaoke. They wanted to see Dropsy, so I did Dropsy for them this weekend, which was kind of fun. And I had to go get some new makeup. Hey, just going me. Thank you so much for the applause. Anyway, so I had to go get some new makeup, and so I decided I was gonna. It was the first time that I've actually purchased makeup since becoming ethical vegan, I think 2 years ago. And so I decided that I was going to go the way of buying cruelty-free makeup. And interestingly, I found that Ricky's, which is the place that I would normally go to, I usually go to Ricky's for kind of specialty things because they carry more like theatrical makeup for performers. And so they carry lines for performers. And I found two products. I was in the market for a new lipstick, and I found this brand. It's a matte lip color, and the company is Color Rain, and this is a cruelty-free brand. And I don't know if any of you have any interest. First of all, it's a brand that I think is specifically for sisters. So if you're a sister and you're looking for cruelty-free makeup, it becomes more of a challenge because those makers, and it comes in this, and this color was for real, y'all. This was sort of like a copper lip color. I don't know if you can see it. You missed the photo. I'll show the photo again. Yeah, I'll show the photo again. So this color was kind of awesome, and I'm going to tell you this about this brand, and I can't tell you like what it's exactly called. I don't have my glasses on. Oh, my glasses are right here, y'all. Excuse me, I'm gonna put my glasses on so I can actually, so I can be useful and tell you things. I'm going to show the picture again. Just one second. Let's get this out of the way. Okay, hold on. All right, so this was. Let me get them on. It's still too small to see. Okay, this is Empire, and it's Colored Rain Cosmetics is the company. I don't know if you can see. No, no, but it's too blurry. But the color is Empire, but it was like this copper color, and for real, y'all, I put it on. I put it on at 8 o'clock, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, I had to work to get it off. So it was perfect coverage, total coverage, one swipe, and it was perfect coverage. And yeah, so yeah, how many hours is that? That's like 5 hours. This is not what I had. I think I have some. I took some pictures of my face from this week. I always feel like, ooh, when I open my pictures, like what's gonna be in there? It's gonna be a hot mess, or is what's gonna be? I don't have any. I don't have any pictures of. I don't have any pictures. I think I only took videos. I think I only took videos of my face, y'all. I think I only took videos of my face, and the videos I only did them on. They were on Snapchat, so they're gone. So if you weren't following me on Snapchat, you didn't get to see any pictures. Okay, so I did re-show the picture, right? Oh, thank you, just glowing me. So yeah, and then the other thing that I got was I needed some new contour and actually new eyeshadow, and so I ended up finding this company. This is Velvet 59, and I got this little pack. It's contour. It's a girl's best friend. Why gotta be a girl's best friend? Anyway, and so it was cute. It had like this nice little six color palette, and you can see I got in there. So I used this. I used this color as my main contour color, and then this like was my like I used this, which is this color here. You can't see. This was my like main highlight, and I played a little bit around with this color, but it did the job. It did the trick. And so as of now, I still don't have, and I wonder if this particular palette has a name. I'm not sure if this is a, yeah, but if you can see, you can't really see this, but it's like there, it's like says cruelty. It's cruelty free, it's gluten free, and it's paraben free, and it's vegan. So that thought that was really cute. So it's Velvet 59. So they make a nice little vegan product, and it worked. It did the trick. And the face was beat, and it stayed beat all night, and I was jumping around, y'all. When I host karaoke, it's not a stand around, it's not a posing type of thing. It is not a stand around and pose type of thing. I'm jumping up on the furniture, I'm spinning. I'm not quite doing cartwheels because I'd probably kick down the lighting fixtures if I did a cartwheel any place. But yeah, so it was fun. It was fun. Did a lot of singing. I had a friend come down from Rhode Island. It was cute. It was cute. My niece came and sang some songs. It was nice. So that's what happened. So that's what that was about. 15 minutes into the broadcast, and all I've talked about is my face, beating my face. So that's what's up with that. So I wanna hear from y'all. What are your thoughts about recent videos? I don't know if everybody has been following the channel, and so I don't know if everybody is up on the um an active hostess. Yeah, whatever. I'm whatever, but I'm active. Because they like, I mean, they want shows. I think the reason that they like Dropsy is they're into the show, and I really do put on a show, and so it's very, I do sort of like the bar wench thing. It's like I'm a working girl, right? So I'm a working girl. So I'm there. I'm like running up and down the bar, getting the job done, and then every now and then I stand up and sing. So and Dropsy is that's the look. Just imagine, that's the look. So, but it's fun. I was not a blonde, actually. I was a big old frizzy brunette. So yes, yes. And I say bar wench because it's like very like, it's not glamour. It's not a glamour look. It's like a working look. It's like a top that's like a knit top with, you know, and my, like a skirt with like pockets, like if I was gonna be taking orders and things so I'm working. I'm there in service. I'm there in the service of the crowd. Yes. I always think of it for some reason as Jean Genet, like a dock of like a bar near the docks in Paris kind of thing, serving the sailors. serving serving the sailors. You know, we're used to a very rough crowd, and it is generally a very rough crowd, and it's kind of a waterfront. Where I work is the place is called Hope and Anchor, so it's got a nautical theme, and so I'm trying to like go with the nautical theme. And the neighborhood itself has a very blue collar, like working class feel, like industrial feel on the word. So like the shipping. So yeah, not quite a Cockney accent, not quite, but whatever. I don't know. Was that a Cockney accent even? So if I just did a terrible Cockney accent, y'all can let me know what to work on. So that's that. So yeah, but what else? What else do you guys want to talk about? Come on now. You have me for 40 you have me for 45 you have me for 45 more minutes. Now listen, just glowing me. If you're going to keep doing, if you're going to have a running commentary, you might as well jump on so I'm not here by myself. I want to talk to you. And good morning, Mike on Raw. Welcome to the broadcast. We've talked about a couple of things, Mike on Raw. You missed all kinds of things. We did a whole thing on drag karaoke and the purchasing of cruelty-free cosmetics, and now we're just getting down to business. I'm just about to put my foot down and say, y'all, I want to get into a conversation about something, and I really want to know from you, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about today? Oh, cool. So Mike on Raw, getting your workout on. That's nice. So between curls or crunches. Oh, thank you for the applause, Mike on Raw. Thank you. Yeah, so I want to know what's going on? What's going on in your lives? What do we want to get into? So, what? Just to continue on, like, well, if we want to continue, Love Light Ananda, welcome to the broadcast. It's telling me that this is your first time on YouNow, and I am convinced that that is not true. I believe that you've been here for several broadcasts, but it's telling me that it's your first time here. So I don't know. I don't know if did you start a new account or something like that? Yeah, it's not. You've been here. You've been here, yeah? Love Light Ananda says that's not true, and I'm not sure if you mean that's not true that you've been here or that's not true that it's your first time. By the way, you guys, I love it. Every week I'm number one on social justice, but I'm probably alone on social justice. It can't be that. I'm sure that there are other people doing broadcasts on social justice, but not true. Not on YouNow. This is not the platform for that. I know you are. I know you are, Love Light Ananda. I know you've been on these broadcasts and made um, contributions to the discussion. I know that. They can't fool me. They can't fool me. So, what things, y'all? So, just pick up where, was I left off in the last video, that I, made this video. And I was talking about this idea, like, what do we owe as citizens of a country? And there's so much rhetoric around, like, you guys have seen, when the folks, the conservatives get on and they want to call, people, Nico Lachgas, welcome to the broadcast. Love Light Ananda, thank you for living for Dropsy, because Dropsy lives for the love. So what was I talking about? I was talking about this whole thing, all this rhetoric, and people are like, if it wasn't for all these things that you don't like, you wouldn't have a country, you wouldn't have a life here. And I'm just like, it's always, bull crap, right? It's always a little bit of bull crap. If it wasn't for the flag, you wouldn't have this liberty. If it wasn't for the troops, you wouldn't have that, right? And so it's like, Hmm. It's only part of the picture, right? So we do have a military, and our military is responsible for, I'm going to say, I suppose, some of the benefits that we enjoy as citizens of the United States. And I don't know if other people want to talk about the sense that they have, the sense of security that they have, the sense of their livelihood that they owe to their militaries, the various militaries in various countries. Yeah, I would be, I would love to know like what your thoughts are on that. But I feel like there's like this overblown sense that if we didn't have a military that was out doing all these things in the world, that we wouldn't have a United States, right? And just the fact of the matter is, we have a United States of America because um, do they forget who Americans fought to make these states united? I mean, I think that that's part of it, right? That is part of it, but I think there's also like they're erasing, like starting in 1605 when the London Co. was formed to invest in this colonial project, right? The American colonial, the colonies in the Americas, right? When that company was formed, it was a business proposition. And they came to the United States because they wanted to make some money. They wanted to make some money. So they came and they did what they needed to do to secure a certain amount of resources, natural resources for the most part, right? So that was part of it. And you could say that that was the military, or you could say it was whatever. But, so there was the those steps that was taken by those steps that were taken by the original settlers, right? And then you have a whole bunch of people who were shipped from Europe to the United States, most of them coming from England, right? And a lot of those people were, you know, some of them were coming because they wanted something new, or some of them were pursuing like religious freedoms or what have you. Yeah, there was a certain amount of that, but there were a lot of people. 80,000 folks came as part of this penal system, part of the penal system. Are they mad because they're running out of people to oppress? There's all kinds. I mean, that's part. I mean, that might be part of it, but I just want to say, like, we owe a certain amount of the existence of the United States to the fact that 80,000 people, as part of the penal system, were sent to the American colonial penal colonies, right? To the penal colonies here in what was, what were the colonies, what became the United States, right? And then you have the people who were taken from Africa and brought here and served as free labor for, 300 years, right? So we owe a lot to them, right? And those folks aren't included in the conversation. And often when the folks are saying, well, shut up, you owe this to that, they're trying to stop the folks who are trying to call attention to the fact that the United States owes something to those folks who worked for free for all this time, right? So you got that going on. And then you have the continued exploitation of labor that happened in the 19th century and the 20th century, which was also part of immigration, right? Um, I love it. Love Light Ananda says, right, the original Guantanamo. And this is before Australia was the penal colony. In fact, people tie the founding of the Australian penal colonies to the fact that the British couldn't send their criminals to the United States anymore because we had U.S. independence, so they couldn't send them here anymore. So they had to send them somewhere else. So they started sending them to Australia. Now, I'm not going to say that that is you know uh, cause and effect, but they certainly couldn't send them to the United States, and they had to send them, and they felt they needed to send them somewhere. Um, so those are things that people forget to talk about when they talk about what people owe. And the other thing that I talk about in that video is you want my loyalty. You want my loyalty as a U.S. citizen, but you also want my taxes. You know what I mean? I'm supposed to do all this bowing and kowtowing to these idols, right? First of all, there's the whole idea of these idols. And for a society that's based, that's so steeped in Christianity, where we have the Ten Commandments that says, I think the first of them is, I am the Lord your God, you shall have no false gods before me, or something like that. Um, they want us to worship this piece of polyester that's got these red, white, and blue, that's red, white, and blue with these stars and stripes. They want us to worship this thing. It's like, no, I'm sorry, that is a piece of fabric. I'm not going to worship a piece of fabric. I'm living my life here. Take some money. I'll give you take some money. Go do some stuff with it. Shut up, right? And I won't complain about that. I'll pay my taxes and I won't complain. And that's the whole idea, is that people pay their taxes so that they That's the cost of admission to be a citizen in the United States is taxes, right? And to obey the laws. And to obey the laws. So as long as you obey the laws and pay your taxes, which aren't even in the Constitution, right? They're not even in the they forgot to put all citizens will pay taxes into the Constitution, right? So like there are some who argue the constitutional scholars who will argue that taxes are unconstitutional. Um, so yeah, Love Light Ananda says taxation without representation is still in place. Yeah, and for a lot of people there that is the case because the services they want to deny services to people who do pay taxes. It's like, the way, if we think about the way insurance works, right? We're willing to pay insurance that we'll never benefit from, right? That will never benefit from. We will pay out more over our lifetime in insurance than we may ever benefit from, on the off chance that if something happens, we'll be covered, right? That's how insurance works. And insurance companies make sure they get paid. They make sure they have a profit. Just going because that it was supposed to be temporary. The idea of taxation um, was supposed to be supposed to be something that was temporary. And I'd like to look more into it. In fact, I think I might spend more time on taxes next month because people may have questions about like, what do you mean by taxes not being constitutional? They just forgot to stop taxing after the Depression. Laughing out loud, just glowingly says, right? So this whole idea of taxation, look. You got us paying taxes. I don't need to bow and genuflect and all this other nonsense. No, no, because every time you tell me that I have to do something with my body, right? That's taking away a freedom, right? I don't have to do this body doesn't have to do anything but, stay black and die, right? That's the only thing that I have to do in this lifetime, right? But you're asking me to pay taxes, and I'm paying taxes, and that is covering me living here, right? If I own a piece of property, I pay property taxes. If I buy things, I pay taxes on the things that I buy, right? And I pay utilities on the things that I use. So I pay as I go. So this whole idea that I'm supposed to owe some reverence to the flag is absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. It's as if you are telling me who to worship. You might as well tell me who I need to worship, which in some ways that stuff is imposed on us through certain ideological mechanisms, right? Like, by putting it on the money, printing on the money in God we trust, right? So all of these things, putting it in the Pledge of Allegiance, right? And I think they finally did take it out of the Pledge of Allegiance, right? But I'm sure that there's still people who keep it in there, one nation under God, right? Indivisible, right? And the having to say the Pledge of Allegiance is in its own way an imposition for a group of people who are being asked to then do all these other things. Either you just want my allegiance. If you want my allegiance and then you can call on me if you need me, that's one thing. But the fact that you have me paying all these taxes, I get to step back. I get to step back and say, okay, I'm paying you the taxes to do things. Now, of course, we understand that if we want to have any kind of a say in the way the country is run, we need to engage in the political process. So that's not a requirement, but if you do want to have some say over the way things happen, then you need to jump in there and get politically engaged. But that's not even required, right? All they really want us to do is go and vote. And there's no law that says you have to vote. If anything, there should be pressure around people to vote. That's when they should need to be cussing people out. Oh, Colin Kaepernick said he wasn't going to vote. Cuss him out, right? Spread his name all over the media, right? Because then that would be effective. But whether or not I like the flag is ridiculous. The whole owing people for the past doesn't fit with me. I think, yeah, I'm with you 100% because if I owe people from the past, does that mean that people in the past owe me for things that they did wrong? Like if I owe people in the past for what they did right, do people in the past owe me for what they did wrong? Good morning, Mad Blender. Welcome to the broadcast. So you can see what we're going off on here. I don't know how much you caught. I don't know how much you caught, Mama, but Yeah, I got that it was Boo. Although I got some new books, y'all. I got some new plays that I'm reading. I'm reading Sweat by Lynn Nottage. I'm reading Her by Taylor Mack. And Next to Normal is a musical. I'm not sure. I think it says, what does it say? What does it say? Tom Kitt and Brian Yorkie. These are books from I'm teaching an honors course. I don't know if I told y'all. Um, Wait, the owners are just like me says the owners are taking a knee. The owners are taking a knee because Trump is messing with their pimp game. Hmm, that's interesting. And I don't know if folks saw the Sensei Aisha Mas. I believe I'm not. I never know how to say Serin's name, but did a scathing video talking about that, talking about the fact that the sports arena is like the new way that we controlling like the way black bodies develop, right? It's being like in communities of color, there are certain aspects of the body that are being valued more highly, right? People are like, okay, I got to play basketball, I got to play basketball, I got to play sports to get into college, right? So you have a group of people who are emphasizing this one way, like they're basically emphasizing the development of their physical bodies to be used in this particular industry, and talks about the fact that in college sports there's so much money to be made, but those kids don't get paid. Those kids actually pay to go to college unless they're going on scholarship, but like their bodies are just being ruined. Then their bodies are just being ruined, and there's a little bit of a kind of a slave block kind of feel that Seren calls out that kind of rang true, but I don't know. I'd have to investigate. I certainly there's a certain number of books that I've peeped through that talk about this. In fact, I can share a couple of those with you, at least one with you that was an interesting read on the subject of. It's called Commodified and Criminalized: New Racism and African Americans in Contemporary Sports. And it's an anthology of it's a collection of essays edited by David J. Leonard and C. Richard King. And yeah, it's just a collection of essays. And I want to just give you a sense of some of the essays. Um, I have to go into the table of contents here. Does it have a table of contents? Mm, yeah, there's sort of a table of contents, but the way the table of contents, there is an essay on Tiger Woods. There's an essay on Venus and Serena Williams. There's one on Kobe. There's just a bunch of there's just a bunch of I think there's all told there are 10 essays on various topics, but they look at everything from like the amount of money that African Americans spend on sports, especially young people, with the young people spending money on the paraphernalia and on sneakers. And this is a book. This is a book, and yeah, this is a book. And again, the book is called um, "Commodified and Criminalized." And it's a collection of essays edited by David J. Leonard and C. Richard King. The subtitle is New Racism and African Americans in Contemporary Sports. And it's interesting because I read the book because I was part of starting a youth-focused worker cooperative, and it was a marketing cooperative, and I wanted to be able to talk about the way young people in challenged communities, urban communities are the targets of marketing so that so much of the little bit of money that they make goes back to these huge corporations to buy things like sneakers. And I don't want to be critical of young people for wanting to spend money on when they look around, this is what's being valued. This is how they are being valued for how much they're emulating this sports figure, right? And whether or not people think that they have some potential to be a sports superstar, right? Um, or the other thing is like to be a rap superstar, right? But even like in rap culture tends to emulate sports culture, right? They tend to, wear this, they're wearing the sneakers and the hats and the gear and all of those things, right? So I thought it was important to know a little bit about the connection between communities of color and the sports industry and how the exploitation that happens within those communities, and then trying to flip that on its head and create a marketing cooperative that turned the targets of that marketing into the leaders in a different type of industry. So just going to me saying, trying to keep the talent on the field, just going to me, they know that black men bring in the money. Like, yes, Seren talks about the fact that I think 70% of the NFL is men of color. Michael Ross says, we can try to understand the past, but we should live today only based on the past. And I think that what, Michael Ross, I think what you're talking about, we shouldn't live today based on the past. Okay, so all right, we shouldn't live today based on the past. I was going to say that maybe should live today based on the past only in as much as we learn lessons from the past, right? We understand things that have happened in the past and things that might happen again if we don't shift the way that we think about things. But then we're new people, right? So then we have to be a little bit careful with that, right? We have to look and see how have we changed in order to know whether we can, try to go down a familiar road that we didn't, what I mean? It's sort of like the first person to try to climb Mount Everest may have fallen, but it doesn't mean nobody else should try to climb Mount Everest. But we should be aware of the past, but not live our lives as if that is, the laws that were written then. And just going me says, diluting the Colin Kaepernick reason for kneeling in the first place. Right. So I think it's interesting because I like kind of where Seren is coming from. And I also, Tone Talks. I don't know if you guys are familiar or if you've heard me talk about Tone Talks, but someone else that I found very recently who's just a very reasonable voice, I think, in looking at the way, particularly in the media, we frame issues that are happening in communities of color, especially in poor urban communities of color. Um, just when the convo was getting interesting, Veganista says 007. I'm not sure what do you mean, Veganista? Veganista, what are you talking about? Just when the convo was getting interesting. What do you want? Tell me what you need, y'all. Tell me what you need. Um, what if all the players of color sat out one game? Would they listen then? It would be interesting. But see, here's the thing. It's like how like and I think Tone talk in the Tone Talks video on the topic, Tone um, brings out the fact that we have somehow placed the onus on folks in an industry that was designed to replicate basically slavery. Who basically have sort of like signed up to get paid to look like slaves. You know what I mean? To be like big, sort of like standing, basically to look like they're on the block, right? And now we want those same folks who have benefited from like helping to support helping to maintain a particular ideology about um, black bodies and the way black bodies are seen in the media. Now we want to have them to come out and talk about how unfair it is that we look at black bodies in the same way, or that black bodies continue to be treated in a certain way. Veganista, you got to go to work? Well, we'll be more. So Veganista, when you go to work, please carry some thoughts with you, and be sure to love yourself. And hopefully we'll talk to you next week. And at some point, we're gonna get you up here. We're gonna get you up here as a guest in the queue. So yes, this idea that yes, there is immense power that folks in the sports industry hold, but that power is certainly limited. It's limited it exists within a framework where that platform is the slave block. So to expect people from the slave block, basically, and this is a little bit of hyperbole, but I'm just trying to follow through. I'm trying to follow through on the same metaphor. To expect them from the slave block to then be able to speak to the world in terms of the liberation of people of color. It's Thank you. You have a great day too. Veganista says, love the live stream. Have a great day. Thank you so much. Not hyperbole. Well, okay, thank you. Thank you. But that definitely are connections to be made. Yes, there are connections to be made with the way Black bodies continue to be commodified, right? And so as a commodity, to stand there as a commodity, dressed in your gear, right? Dressed in the gear of that role, in your role, like you're in your costume, to then try to make a statement. Of course people are going to be outraged. It's like, excuse me, I was enjoying looking up at you up on your little block pedestal, and now you're going to sit here and try to have a voice, and you're going to try to be something other than a thing. You are only there because you have been allowed yourself to become a thing. And I'm not trying to criticize Colin Kaepernick. I still think within that's the contradiction, y'all. That's the contradiction. We're all trying to do this. Like the fact that I'm sitting here trying to have this conversation on YouNow, on the internet, right? Having access, like having all of my privilege and all these things, right? There's contradictions in it, and I don't mean to like belittle or demean what people are doing, but there's going to be pushback, and this is happening in an arena where the amount of power that these individuals have is in the context of the immense power that the owners of those teams have, and the vast majority of sports fans have, and the vast majority of the owners are not people of color, and the vast majority of sports fans are not people of color. So within that arena, to suddenly try to have a voice, of course you're going to have immense pushback, because those folks are going to feel like, well, what? I've been supporting you. I've been writing you a paycheck. Why are you in this privileged position that has been given to you thanks to the generosity of a lot of people who are not of color? Do you want to, like, call out stuff that these other people are doing? I'm not bashing you. I'm not shooting you while you're unarmed. Do you know? I'm not I'm providing you with a job. So why are you on this platform now trying to be the voice of reason? And all of it's unreasonable, but those are also the people that are likely to be heard. So unfortunately, those are our options right now, unless somehow new platforms can be created. So, there are very few folks who have a platform where their wealth and power are not, tied to someone else above them who has a whole lot of power, like Oprah. Oprah. Oprah might be the only one, as far as I know. Oprah might be the only person who has a platform to say whatever it is that Oprah wants to say. But even Oprah has to understand that she does have an audience to answer to. And she doesn't want to lose her audience by alienating them by saying something. But Oprah's fierce, y'all. I don't know if you guys saw the interview with Ava DuVernay, who is the director of the documentary film 13th, which looks at the 13th Amendment and the impact that loophole in the 13th Amendment, the clause in the 13th Amendment that says that people who are guilty of a crime, found guilty of a crime, can be enslaved. And that loophole has been exploited to extract the labor from African Americans who've been criminalized in the criminal system, right? And so to point now, we have 2.5 million. Of that 2.5 million, there's like 1.25 million people of color, African Americans, who are in prison right now. So Slick Nation 95, welcome to the broadcast. And Love Light Ananda says, but when the LVPD says what happened to Michael Bennett, Seahawks was professional and justified. I don't know that much about it. I'm gonna take notes on here because I'm learning, getting a lesson here. Love Light Ananda, you got to tell me a little bit more about the LVPD and the Bennett Seahawks. I could look it up. I'm gonna look a little bit up on my phone. In the meantime, please comment, y'all. I want to know what you guys are thinking about what's being said here on the broadcast, and if anyone knows about the Michael Bennett story. My feeling is the Michael Bennett story has something to do with the dogs, but I don't know. I don't want to speak out of turn. That's probably that's Michael Vick, right? Mm. Okay, so there was Michael Bennett, who is, I guess, a player for the Seattle Seahawks. And let me see one day ago what came out. Of course, that first story that comes up is from Breitbart, right? So apparently Michael Bennett was detained and claimed to be racially profiled. Yeah, this is something I need to get into. Maybe I'll do some stories about it, but I want to get more into it. But even not knowing the details, I talk about this a little bit in my last video. We talk about certain ideologies, right, which are held dear. So Colin Kaepernick, for example, not first of all, welcome Jordan FR, welcome to the broadcast. And so Colin Kaepernick refuses to honor the flag, right? And so Colin Kaepernick at that point ceases to be a good citizen, right? He ceases to be a good citizen. And in the United States, that, as far as anyone is concerned, that's criminal. That criminalizes Colin Kaepernick to an extent, so that anything that happens to him becomes justified. So it doesn't take much for people who are, you have folks uh, who are dealing with this sort of a crisis of their consciousness, right? Um, where there is a disconnect between what they believe to be good and the reality that they are experiencing, what's happening around them. And it happens, when folks are, who eat, who who think of animals as food, right? But then they have a dog, and then they think about what's happening to that animal when it's in the slaughterhouse, and there's a cognitive dissonance. There's a cognitive dissonance. And in order to manage that, people will clutch at any straw because it's such an uncomfortable, that's a place of psychological distress. Cognitive dissonance. It's a place of psychological distress. And so people need to get out of that state. And any excuse will lead to the nod. Any excuse will lead to the nod. And by the nod, that's like, yeah, that's right. Yes, yes, okay. Anything to let people off. So the most flimsy excuse becomes acceptable in terms of the exploitation, subjugation, death, destruction of anyone, whoever in the world that we might be benefiting from. Michael Ross says, isn't that often the basis of conflict when what people think turns out to be wrong? I mean, I think it's interesting, Michael and Raw, that you put it that way. It's I want to say that, certainly conflict arises when you discover that you're wrong. It depends on, the maturity of the person and their willingness to own up to being wrong. It's like, oh, I was wrong, right? That being wrong is something that's been criminalized. Just being wrong has been criminalized. That state of being wrong has been criminalized. But in this case of cognitive dissonance, you know it's wrong. You know it's wrong, but a particular need or a perceived need is being fulfilled through this action that you know is wrong. So we need to mitigate the stress that is happening in these people who have this need that must be fulfilled. People are hungry. I got to eat something. I need protein. I need protein, right? We think, well, the Bible says that it's okay to eat animals, what have you, even though it may not be at all. But even someone telling me, and I'm not going to investigate to find out whether or not it's true, because I just need that. I just need that to be able to live and to have happiness. Because in that place of cognitive dissonance, you can't experience joy. You're experiencing guilt and horror, and even depression. So I think there's an expectation that people are going to latch on to flimsy excuses for the things that happen to certain groups, because if it's not happening to them, then how are we going to maintain our society without having a lower class? You know, I'm thinking about for some reason, this unnatural vegan in one of those 3 to 5 videos that were made about uh, intersectionality, just sort of debunking the idea of social justice in general, talks about this idea that, well, some people have to fall through the cracks. What does that mean? Like, what are the cracks? The cracks in what? And once one falls through the cracks, where is one left, right? Even that phrase, that euphemism, people have to fall through the cracks. What Swayze means to say is, people have to die for me to live the life that I want to live. Some people have to die. That's what Swayze is saying. But if Swayze had said some people have to die for some other people to survive, I think people would have responded to that video in a quite different way. So by even the euphemism, some people have to fall through the cracks. Fall through the cracks is such a benign statement. It sounds like, oh, they're going to fall through the cracks and they're going to land in this little soft bit of earth that's under the sidewalk or what have you. And that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That's not what happens. And the fact that, some people have to die in order for some people to live. What does that mean? Why? I need some evidence to back that statement up, because there are others that believe. I mean, we certainly have. There are many who would say that we have enough resources on the planet. I think what is it, Radical Simplicity? And I can't think of the author right now, but it's something else that I have here. There's a book called Radical Simplicity that talks about just basically our needs. What is needed to sustain life. If I can find it, I'll share that title. The author of that particular book. Okay, so Radical Simplicity is Small Footprints on a Finite Earth. It's by Jim Merkel, and I believe there's an accompanying documentary about Jim Merkel. And Jim Merkel proposes that based on the current population and the sort of livable arable land on the planet, that every individual could have 5 acres, and that 5 acres could sustain that individual. And so just presents the idea that it is not a matter of scarcity. It's a matter of that people want so much more than that 5 acres. There are people who feel the need to control so much more than that 5 acres that you end up with a small number of individuals who have, control of thousands of acres, and many who have no space at all afforded to them. So Love Light Ananda says, but she's a troll. I try to hear her out, but I just can't. And I think that Love Light Ananda is talking in terms of Swayze. And with me, it's like I don't want to say that I don't know that nothing Swayze says is true, but because of the conviction that Unnatural Vegan displayed around this particular topic, where it was so clear that the research just hadn't been done, and the refusal to do that research or to talk about the roots of that the sort of the philosophy of intersectionality, I lost faith in Swayze as a credible source of information because I'm thinking, okay, there's all this stuff that Swayze might talk about where I don't have information to know whether or not what this person is saying is true. So how am I going to take that person? How am I going to just take it? How am I supposed to believe that this person isn't failing in their logic and research in these cases and other matters? And so with that said, I kind of had to stop following Unnatural Vegan altogether. And I had actually previously defended Unnatural Vegan when other people had come to me and said, you have to go after Unnatural Vegan. Unnatural Vegan is doing stuff that's bad. And I didn't know, and I didn't have enough information, and not enough people were able to explain to me exactly what it was. And I think it was because it was just wrong, and it's hard to make it clear to people who don't understand when someone is being wrong on a topic that is in any way complex. My sense was when it came to intersectionality that it wasn't very complex. It's a very simple complex. It's a very simple concept that has been complicated by others who've either tried to co-opt it or tried to include themselves in a conversation where they weren't necessarily involved, right? Where they were not the subject or part of the subject. Love Light Ananda says Swayze changed about a year ago. She used to make me aware of things, but now she's plainly wrong. Yeah, and I imagine that this is happening. This is happening with a few folks on the YouTube. It is clear that there is an element on YouTube that is interested in upholding certain, I want to call them values, but every value is not moral, right? Every value isn't moral because I might value gambling, whatever. I'm not saying gambling is bad, but it's not necessarily good for an individual. But certain things were being valued, and they saw an opportunity, that there are certain channels that were becoming very, very successful by sort of latching on to a certain way of thinking about the world. And folks just are kind of running with that. And I see that Swayze might be influenced by some of that. Some of that has to do with the atheist, the folks from the skeptics movement that were primarily focused on atheism and debunking religion. And some folks from that movement, when they kind of got tired, I guess, got tired of arguing with religious folks, because religious folks will turn around and say, my child, it's a matter of faith, and be done. And they'll go and as blissful as blissful as blissful as can be, right? As blissful as a child, swimming in chocolate, right? And move on. And that has to be very frustrating if you're somebody who likes to, balance everything with logic. And so to suddenly turn to this other particular group that's not even based on ideology, but the social justice folks tend to be based in evidence, because you have to be, especially if you're part of a not-for-profit organization where you are constantly having to give evidence to sometimes people who are quite conservative so that you can fund your project. So, there was the opportunity to have these little fights, right? And the more that group started to engage with the social justice community, the more they then had to fall back on ideology. So it was weird because it was a complete flip. You had this group that was like, against the ideology that is part of the religious community, suddenly embracing all these ideologies. So you have people like Dave Cullen talking about the fact that, well, religion, people who are religious, at least I feel that we had shared values, and talking about the fact that, women going to work is ruining society, right? So I can see where somebody like Swayze gets seduced by that. Suddenly I can be, a big fish in a small pond, or it might be a big pond of small minds. I don't know. But, and I'm not trying to make excuses for Swayze, but I can understand why people are taking that direction. Charles on their channel is all about that, is trying to get that red pill, those red pill dollars. And I wonder how that's going to play out ultimately. I do wonder how that's going to play out ultimately. So anyway, that said, y'all, we're there. We're at the hour, and it's been great hanging out with you all. I hope that you found some portion of this conversation enjoyable. It's been great getting some of your thoughts on some of these issues. As I said before, I'm going to be looking into the documentary film Embargo that looks at U.S. Yeah, it goes by so fast. I'm going to be looking at the film Embargo that looks at U.S.-Cuban relations. And so if anybody wants to get the jump on the conversation next week, that might be something to look at. I'm also going to be looking at the Amy Goodman interview with Muhammad Yunus, talking about zero poverty, zero unemployment, and zero emissions, the possibilities of a world without these things, and the potential for that as a possibility. So check out Democracy Now. Check out that interview, and I believe the date on that particular conversation was September 27th. That was from the Wednesday, September 27th edition of Democracy Now. So that's what I'll leave you with, and hopefully that's what we'll be talking about next week. And that's it for this video. Those of you watching on YouTube, like this video if you liked it, share, comment, subscribe. This is Reg signing off. Love yourselves. Peace.